Apologies, we come out of that story to go to Israel once again, where Israel's pounding of Gaza has continued overnight, with the Israeli army saying that they have struck over 200 targets. Israel's military said that the death toll in Israel has reached 1,200 and more than 2,700 people have been wounded. Let's now speak to our correspondent in Tel Aviv, Sarah Coates, once again. Sarah, once again, good morning. We got cut there but earlier on, but you're still responding to the question around the troops that have, the reservists that have put up their hands, and whether or not we could see a ground incursion.
Yeah, well, look, military analysts are predicting an imminent ground incursion. What this could look like would be a multi-pronged attack. This could be from the ground, as I mentioned, with artillery and heavy tanks going into the Gaza Strip, as well as from the sea and from the air, like what we've been seeing with these air raids over the past 5 days. Now, this would be to completely wipe out Hamas. Israeli officials say that Gaza will never be the same. Now, over the last 24 hours, air raids have increased on the Gaza Strip. Israel says, as you mentioned, it has taken out more than 200 structures which are believed to be belonging to Hamas, housing things like weaponry, also terror tunnels that the terror group uses to smuggle fighters and weapons. And this is the same place that these some 150 potential hostages are believed to be being held by Hamas. Israel also says that it wants to target senior Hamas leaders and affiliates. So look, it really is a developing and a very active situation here on the ground. Hamas continues to fire rockets from the Gaza Strip into Israeli territory. I'm still getting notifications on my phone right around this Gaza envelope. Communities, people there that haven't yet evacuated are being told to stay in shelters.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have the clashes between Hamas as well as the IDF. But now also you have Hezbollah as well around the Lebanese border. So a two-pronged approach here, of two-pronged war, if you consider where the Israeli government is standing.
Yeah, well, look, Israel is keeping a really, really close eye on the north right now. Israeli troops are actually shelling positions in southern Lebanon. This is in response to guided missiles being sent over. Hezbollah claiming it was behind that. It says it was in response to Israel killing a number of its fighters over the last few days during infiltrations over into Israeli territory. Now, residents up in the north, there's a very northern community called Metula. They are being told to evacuate, to get out now, with fears of a major reprisal by Hezbollah. Now, also up in the north, there were missiles fired over from Syria overnight. So, of course, this is of huge concern to Israel. Syria backed by Assad, and also Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran. So this is something that Israel has been keeping an extremely close eye on. Even from where we are now, there's been increased aircraft activity in the sky, choppers coming up and down the coast. So it certainly looks like it's really heating up both in the north and in the south.
And let's speak about how this conflict in this particular case has affected the commerce, business, as well as the people at least trying to go about their ordinary business in Israel, and also the reports that more flights are being cancelled because of this conflict.
Yeah, certainly. Well, look, Israel right now, Tel Aviv especially, which is normally extremely busy, is like a ghost town, barely anything open, just a few supermarkets and a few delivery services for food. A lot of businesses have actually boarded up their windows and they're not allowed to actually open now by law unless they have a connected bomb shelter. People have also been told to limit gatherings. This is, of course, in case there is a huge barrage of rockets which does strike buildings and cause mass casualties. But look, it's certainly having a a huge impact. Normally there are so many cars out, people out and about, but everyone is being extremely careful and staying home. Even as you mentioned, many flights are being cancelled. El Al, the Israeli carrier, it is still operating, but on a limited capacity. Ethiopia Airlines is still operating, also with limited flights, but most of the other major airlines have cancelled flights. It's extremely difficult to get in and out of Israel. It took me 2 days to fly even from Paris. As I said, some of these foreign nationals who have been begging their embassies to get home, they will be taken out apparently via, military aircraft. So look, it is certainly a developing situation, and you can imagine, as this situation escalates, that it will be even more difficult to get in and get out and to access essential services.
Yeah. And has that US military aircraft, or craft at least, that said that it's going to come and pick up some of the citizens in Israel, do we know whether or not that flight has landed as yet?
Still no word on that, but we do know a US aircraft landed yesterday bringing advanced weapons to Israel, the first shipment that was promised by the Pentagon. Now, on top of this, US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, he is apparently in contact with both Jerusalem and Cairo, trying to establish some sort of humanitarian corridor in and out of Gaza into Egypt. There are just amid pleas from humanitarian groups for medical aid to get into this coastal enclave, which, as we know, is one of the most densely packed areas in the world. The Gaza Health Ministry says that the hospitals there only have limited hours left of petrol supplies. This is due to the fact that Israel has completely blockaded the Gaza Strip. No petrol, no gas, no power, no food, and no water is allowed into this strip. This is, of course, in a bid to try and limit the power of Hamas to really conduct any more attacks on Israel. So look, the situation is certainly worsening on the humanitarian front, on the front line, and here in Israel. So, and it's, analysts say it's potentially only going to get worse, and Israeli authorities have reportedly told authorities in Egypt that they are bracing for a months-long conflict.
A final one, Sarah, as we wrap up. Yesterday, President Joe Biden saying that the US will make sure Israel will not run out of military assets to defend themselves. And yesterday as well, the European Commission backtracking on a decision that was taken to cut aid to Palestine. Are there any other significant developments from the international community with regards to this conflict?
Well, look, there's just so much condemnation after these horrific videos began circulating all over social media, and reports came out of these massacres on Israeli civilians, especially down in the south. But as you mentioned, the European Union, after that initial decision to pull funding from Palestinians, that has actually now been rejected. But look, as we heard following this conversation last night between US President Biden and the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, the US is really throwing its full support behind Israel, saying it will look into the supplies it has and provide whatever it needs. We do know that an aircraft carrier is now sitting off the Mediterranean, and we have heard some also unverified reports that Navy SEALs could be actually entering to potentially try and carry out some sort of a rescue of these hostages, with around 150 of them believed to be being held in Gaza.
Thank you so much for your time. That is our correspondent, Sarah Coates, joining us from Tel Aviv.